Members, I think we're making more out of this than really is the case.
House representatives tackle many challenges, whether it's agreeing on a budget or compromising on a policy bill.
Members, I hope that we will all be thinking of our students.
A representative's job is laden with overcoming obstacles. Many times these acts of will and determination are seen played out in the state capitol's House chamber. Just like Representatives Cass Gilbert, the architect of the state capitol, faced numerous hurdles, not through the legislative process, but in the construction of the capitol. The job would bring Gilbert national recognition and make his architectural career. One of the challenges he faced was worksite safety after the tragic loss of a handful of construction workers. Another challenge was a shortage of funds, requiring Gilbert to compromise on some of his plans. The architect also dealt with conflict when he selected Georgia marble instead of local Minnesota stone for the capitol's outer walls and dome. Many Minnesotans objected to using materials from a state they opposed in the Civil War. Plus, many feared the choice of out-of-state marble would hurt the local stone industry and not employ local skilled tradesmen. However, Gilbert wanted the Georgia marble for its dazzling white color. He was able to broker a deal by using both Georgia marble and local stone cutters were employed to cut and sculpt the Georgia marble. Another obstacle Gilbert faced was his dome design. He had in mind to build a self-supporting marble dome. However, concerns were raised at the proposed dome's stability. To overcome this challenge, a brick dome was built under the marble one as a safety measure. Despite these hurdles, the Minnesota State Capitol drew positive praise when it officially opened on January 2, 1905, and became a turning point in Gilbert's career. The architect would go on to design other famous buildings in the United States. Although it's been more than a century since the Capitol first opened, challenges still exist. One of those challenges is to strike a balance between the technology needs of legislators and maintaining the historical beauty of the House chamber.
We want to use this, these spaces to kind of give you an idea of what Cass Gilbert had originally designed, but it's also a functioning working office space.
Inside, the House chamber examines the history of the chamber's audio and video equipment and how the technology was thoughtfully adapted to fit the needs of representatives while being respectful of Cass Gilbert's original design. When Cass Gilbert designed the House chamber, he created a spot in front of the speaker where representatives could go to address fellow members. The acoustics of this spot, known as the well, are highly resonant.
The speaking well was, of course, the acoustical center of that space, so you could talk from that one space and be heard throughout the entire chamber.
Later, the well was overshadowed as handheld microphones came into the chamber.
A page would run around with a microphone to each speaker as they would be addressing the body. And so that was, technology really made a big difference in how things proceed and move forward.
The late Chief Clerk Ed Burdick once said that some members would refuse to take a microphone thinking they could be heard without amplification, but that wasn't always true. Today, members have a microphone at their desk and a speaker they can plug into to hear other members.
Which presents a very fine balancing act at time between being able to hear members and keeping feedback down. So it's a remarkable system and it works very well.
The speaker and the chief clerk each have a microphone at their respective podiums. The microphones the majority and minority leaders use are standing pedestal mics.
They have an on-off switch on them. Instead of picking the mic off their desk like the regular members do, the standing pedestal mic also gives them a placeholder to keep some papers when they're talking.
Although there were no microphones in the House chamber when the Capitol first opened, the microphones are not obtrusive and do not distract from the timeless splendor of the chamber. In fact, the microphones had been incorporated into the original features of the House chamber. The representatives, speakers, and chief of clerks microphones are wired through each original desk or podium that was there when the Capitol first opened in 1905. It's not just the audio equipment that's a new feature of the chamber, however.
We have, TV cameras mounted, but something you wouldn't have seen in 1905.
There are 3 cameras on the House floor, controlled by a director on the 3rd floor in the Capitol. They can catch all the action on the House floor.
The cameras are here so that we can show the people of Minnesota what happens here in the House.
Viewers can watch live House chamber proceedings broadcast throughout Minnesota on television or on the web, or go online for archived coverage of a floor session. The robotic cameras which captured this video were installed for the beginning of the 1996 legislative session. They replaced cameras that had been used on tripods. Installing the robotic cameras would not be an easy task.
Minnesota Historical Society is very protective of the state capitol, and especially this beautiful room. So when they were thinking about putting in the cameras, we have pan-tilt units, so very heavy cameras and pan-tilt units. And they were thinking about putting toggle bolts into the plaster of the walls over here.
Chief Clerk Al Mathewitz suggested the temporary solution to avoid putting holes into the plaster. He suggested hanging a platform over the railing for each of the cameras to rest on. The platforms are attached to the other side of the short chamber wall, so they are not affixed to the walls facing the chamber. Through this approach, the architectural integrity of the wall facing the chamber is not disturbed. Whether it is video or audio, the House chamber has adapted gracefully to keep up with the times.
It's kind of a dancing act to balance between the needs of new technology and the cost, and also to keep the historical character of the room.
So you have to have that balance of modern conveniences and history at the same time. And so, this chamber is a good example of that.
Architect Cass Gilbert was confronted with many struggles while building the state capitol. Today, the caretakers of the House chamber also face challenges keeping the space historical yet functional. One could argue both have been successful, and the space as it was in 1905 remains a sight and sound to behold.